Hi everybody, we are continuing our exploration of the Solve This Murder archives. So if you listened to last week's episode, you'll know that we did a few proto-Solve This Murder mystery things before we even had the idea to make this its own show. We were doing these purely as bonus episodes for our Escape This Podcast patrons, and we just enjoyed them so much that eventually they evolved into what became Solve This Murder. This one that you're about to listen to is the first part of a two-parter. So even back then, we did sometimes break them into parts when they took too long. It's still an hour long. So it is the first time we did an Agatha Christie short story. And in fact, we recorded this the first year that Agatha Christie's short stories went into the public domain, or at least the American public domain. There's different rules everywhere, and we just hope no one enforces them too hard when it comes to podcasts. So this one is The Disappearance of Mr. Davenheim. This is part 1. Part 2 we'll do next week, and we'll just sort of keep going. There's one more after that I'll release as part of this archive series, and then we'll get on to a new murder mystery. So I hope you enjoy this one. I don't have any other context to give you. Enjoy The Disappearance of Mr. Davenheim, part 1. We don't do full escape rooms here. That's the normal show. Instead, we're doing something slightly different and really enjoyable. Dani takes detective novels, murder mysteries, turns them into playable adventures, and I, your wonderful, charming detective, tries to solve the murder.
We've been put in a very good position this year, being 2018, which has officially put the earliest Agatha Christie works in the public domain. So I've now got kind of a treasure trove to work with because I own a book of her early short stories, which all happen to be written in that first year of writing. So
it's perfect.
Yes.
Now, the first episode we've done, if you hadn't listened to it, was Murder on the Rue Morgue. Murders on the Rue Morgue, which was the first detective story by some accounts. Presumably most accounts, and I had a huge amount of fun playing it. Shall we just get straight into it?
Yeah, let's do this. So this story is called The Disappearance of Mr. Davenheim. It's a 1923 work by Agatha Christie. And one of the interesting things that might make this a little bit easier on you and on the listeners is in this story, Detective Hercule Poirot.
Hercule Poirot?
Poirot? What kind of French R is that, Poirot?
It's a Belgian R.
Sure.
Hercule
Let's
Poirot.
go with that. I can't do it right now, apparently.
Hercule Poirot. That's how it goes.
Yeah. This is a story where he has deigned to solve a crime by sitting back in his chair and having the information fed to him as it comes along and asking questions.
Well, that makes it so easy.
It's pretty perfect.
I don't have to do anything. I can do what I'm doing right now, sit in my chair and collect information.
Our last one was set in Paris. This one is set in the English countryside, so even though it's a Poirot story, I expect that we'll be equal opportunity accent mockers. So, do your best, posh British.
Perfect. Posh or not posh? Oh, welcome, Mr. Poirot. Oh, cool. You do have quite a glorious moustache, you do.
In it
glorious.
You've done that one enough.
Oh.
You haven't been pompous enough on this podcast.
Oh, well, hello, Mr. Poirot. Please, come, sit down. I'll bring you some tea. Earl Grey, hot, wonderful.
We ready to start?
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready to start.
The Disappearance of Mr. Davenheim. What you know is that Mr. Davenheim...
has disappeared?
Shut up. Mr. Davenheim, a senior partner at Davenheim & Salmon, a banking and finance firm, disappeared on Saturday afternoon. Police have plastered his photograph on the front page of all the papers, and as he is quite a well-known businessman, most of the locals are familiar with his face and, his smart attire, dark eyes, long wavy hair, moustache, greying a bit around the edges. He's not the youngest. But quite simply, what happened is he walked out of his stately estate house and has not been seen since.
Oh, so he just left one day, walked out, he wasn't kidnapped, no one's, or maybe he was, but not in the act of walking out of his house. He walked out, never to return.
That's what seems to be the case, according to people around the house.
Now, you said this was on a Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
So it's been less than a week? Or is this a Saturday afternoon many moons ago?
No, it's been less than a week. I think this is taking place, let's say, Tuesday.
Okay, so a few days. He's been gone Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday morning. Okay. And that's all I know.
Quite.
Who brought me this information? Someone?
You're not some
Or have
kind
I
of
just found it out?
semi-omniscient creature?
No, I'm Hercule Poirot. I use a little grey cells to solve the crime. Most foul.
No, I mean, you have a contact with the police who's involved in this case.
Is it Jap? Wait, is Jap Poirot?
Yeah, Jap is Poirot, and in this story, it is Inspector Jap.
Well,
So-
Poirot, listen here. What we found out is that this man went missing on Saturday afternoon. Oh, it's all a bit of a rumbus if you ask me. I don't go in for these posh types and their disappearances. He's probably off in the Caymans. Did people go to the Caymans in 1918?
23.
23?
I don't know. I only think about Americans going to the Caymans.
Oh, he's probably off at Ibiza.
Oh, where do English people go? What's that one called with the Gibraltar?
He's probably at Gibraltar, sunning near Morocco.
That's a lie. They always go to Australia.
On one of these newfangled plane mobiles.
So yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome to chat to Jappy.
I'll ask some questions.
Yeah, you can go around to some other people as well.
Well,
Should you like.
while I'm talking with Jap, if he's brought me this information,
Please.
and I'll use it in my normal voice,
Hmm.
except for certain words for flavour, probably.
Understood.
We know he was gone on Saturday afternoon. Well known about town. No one's seen him since. Who have we asked? Has it gone around town? The butcher, the baker, the candlestick.
Plastered his face on the front of the local paper. It's, as far as I know, everyone around here has seen it.
And no one's come forward with anything?
Look, you know how it is. You occasionally get calls about people who swear they've seen him, but they amount to nothing.
Ah, Monsieur Jap, une theory incredible may often be where the truth lies.
We've got a man manning the man phone, but nothing credible.
Nothing's come in?
Of course, we're following up on everything, but no, nothing that has actually borne any fruit, as it were.
All right, lovely. Okay. Do we know where his estate is? I can go and check and ask questions at the
Absolutely.
estate.
The people on the estate that we've been asking questions of and that we've been in contact with are his wife, and there's a gardener and a maid.
Does he have any other family in town? An aunt, a child, a mistress?
No.
Mistress?
I mean, not that's been uncovered.
Okay.
No.
Kidnapper? Do you have a kidnapper on staff?
Interesting.
No.
No. Look, this isn't his only home. He's got, places in the cities. This is like his country estate sort of thing.
Okay, lovely. Does it have a name, the estate?
Sandringham.
Sandringham? Green leaves?
What was that name? The
Oh no. Cutterbuck or something. Far out.
Clutterbuck?
Clutterbuck estate?
Alright, it's the Clutterbuck estate.
If people can Google what Clutterbuck is a reference to and tweet that at us, you win. That's your challenge. Find out what Clutterbuck is.
Yes, the estate.
Is Clutterbuck estate. This is a real Clutterbuck.
That estate again is Clutterbuck.
Okay. And his wife there's a gardener and a maid, and no one else really in relevant to that location.
Not on a Saturday afternoon.
Okay, I'll just put a little note that's Clutterbuck. And anyone else in town, do you think I should talk to, or that you've talked to? I'll send Jap out to do the talking, presumably.
Absolutely. Now, the one interesting point is that we've heard, and I'm sure that she'll corroborate this, is that Mrs. Davenheim said that he was going out to deliver some letters to the post office. The postmaster has not had any recollection of seeing him.
Interesting. And this postmaster, he would know the man, yes?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Went to deliver letters. Okay, now, so the concept here as my detective, I will send Jap out to do the questioning. Is that the idea? Or do I get to go off and do some
You
questions?
get to go off and do the questions. It'd be boring if you only got to interact with one person.
Well, I don't know. That's how it could be structured. All right, well, I suppose I should start by talking to the family.
All right.
I get in my tiny little car, and he goes up the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sound a car makes.
Mm-hmm.
In 1923. And I go to Clutterbuck Estate.
All right.
And I ring the doorbell. Ring, ring.
I mean, you've got to allow about 20 minutes to get through the copious garden parts of the estate, of course. But all right, you do so, and the maid answers the door.
I say, there is no time. I am from the police. I'm not actually, but that's fine. I must talk to you about the disappearance of Monsieur Roger Ackroyd. What's his name?
Davenheim.
Roger? Davenheim?
I didn't give him a first name.
Ah, okay. David Davenheim.
Okay. With me?
Not with you, silly girl.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'd like to talk to... I think I might first talk to his wife, if that's all right, but I will possibly call on you and the gardener later if you could tell him.
Absolutely, I suppose. Sure.
Wait in the parlour room.
Oh, okay. Understood.
And I'll go talk to the lady of the house.
Mm-hmm. I'll get her for you.
Wonderful.
She runs off up the stairs and produces Mrs. Davenheim.
Mrs. Dani Davenheim.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's talk to Mrs. Davenheim.
I've already talked to the police, you know.
Ah, but madame, was the police know? They do not know how to know what they know. But I know.
I see. Now, you've told my maid to wait in the parlour.
In the parlour room.
Well, that would normally be where we would receive guests, and failing that, my husband's study, but that's currently being closed off.
Why is it closed off?
Well, are you really with the police? They haven't told you this?
I prefer to work with a clean slate.
No. Well...
And a gradually diminishing accent.
Oh, goodness. When the police searched the house before, they found in my husband's study, behind one of the curtains, his personal safe.
Ooh.
You seem so horrified, like I was going to say his head.
That's what I thought, perhaps.
Goodness. They found his safe, and it had been broken into and emptied. So...
Interesting.
Keeping the area clean.
When you say broken
clear.
into... and this is a mixture of me questioning her and possibly going myself if she doesn't know. Does it seem broken into, really broken into, or just open, like someone's cracked the safe? Or someone blown it with dynamite?
It looked like special lock-breaking tools were used.
So not indicative that he himself necessarily may have just emptied the safe. He may have done so. But if he has, he's made it look like it wasn't him.
According to the experts with the police, this is certainly not my area.
Oh, that's fine. Trust yourself. Now, Mrs. Davenheim, is there anything that was troubling your husband?
Troubling him?
Troubling.
Oh. As far as I noticed, his mood was quite usual. But he's preoccupied with his business, but no more so than usual.
Oh, his business, of course. He works with a Mr. Salmon.
That's correct.
Spelt like the fish?
Yes. It may be pronounced salmon. I really wouldn't know.
Fair enough. Well, he may be someone to talk to as well about any business concerns. Has your husband talked about anything else lately? Any desires to travel? Any desires to kill himself? Any desires to murder someone and run away with the money?
Goodness, no. I mean, travel, I can't think that he'd have any desire to travel any more than he does so already.
Where does he usually travel?
It varies depending on where his business takes him, you know, various ventures and their financing and all of that. Last autumn, I think, was the last time, and he went to South America, Argentina, perhaps? I zoned out when he said I couldn't come.
Oh.
So I didn't pay much attention. Yes, I had to look after the affairs of the house.
Does he frequently go on to Argentina or other areas such as that? Or is he usually travelling somewhere different?
Honestly, it's wherever the business takes him, and I wouldn't have... It's not with undue frequency. It's not. I wouldn't have called it suspicious and affair-causing frequency, if that's what you're getting at.
No, I get it. Nothing. I do not get at.
That
the
would
facts, madam, they merely get at things themselves.
And would be a very sad mistress indeed.
Oh, really? Why, your husband not much of a lover?
That's not what I meant. I meant the infrequency of the travel.
Okay. All right.
He travels enough to keep a man who enjoys his travel satisfied. No more, no less.
All right, lovely. Wonderful. Anything else you remember about him on the day that he vanished?
Oh, goodness. I'll try to keep it as accurate to what I've told your compatriots. Is that an appropriate word?
Compatriots, yes.
Oh, understood. Thank you for correcting my English, Mr. Belgian.
Compatriots is how it's pronounced.
He'd been working in his office in the city, but for the weekend, of course. He came by the 12:40 train, I believe it was, and he came straight in, had lunch on his own, and then I didn't see him until tea time, I was upstairs managing my affairs. He may have been working. He may have been strolling the gardens. He's often fond of doing that. And then around 5:30, he knocked on my door and said that he was going to walk down to the village to post some letters. The interesting part was, he also told me that he may have been expecting some company later.
Interesting.
And that I was to show this company, Mr. Lowen, who was supposed to come on some business matter, that I was to show him into my husband's study, and then he would wait there.
To his study, you say?
Indeed.
Interesting.
My husband left, and it was only 15 minutes later that the doorbell rang, and I asked the maid to open the door, but then I greeted this Mr. Lowen.
Mr. Lowen did arrive?
Absolutely, he did.
Interesting.
I'd never met him before. He was quite a tall, dark, and not-so-handsome figure, I suppose you could say. But he seemed pleasant enough. He went into the study, and it was quite some time, and my husband just did not return. Maybe an hour later, Mr. Lowen came out, and he said he was sorry that he couldn't wait any longer and he would have to leave, and, well, naturally, I apologized for my husband's rudeness.
Yes.
It wasn't until the next morning that I thought to call the police.
Of course. So he arrived at 12:40, but then she didn't see him till tea time. Was he in the house?
Between those two? Hard to say.
Okay, so she didn't really see him.
No,
Fine.
she was upstairs.
Okay, interesting. Do you know if this Mr. Lowen is still in town? I can go find him. If you don't, that's fine.
Yes, I couldn't say. He may well have returned to the city, assuming that his business is aligned with my husband's.
When was your husband's safe found by the police? After you called them on the following day?
Well, on the Sunday, when I called them, they searched through the town and were asking all sorts of questions around there. It was the Monday that they thought to search the house.
And you yourself hadn't been into the study to
No,
observe the broken
not.
safe? You didn't find the broken safe?
No.
Interesting.
I don't care to involve myself too heavily in my husband's work. As long as it's going successfully, that's enough for me.
Wonderful. I wonder if it is. I should talk to Mr. Salmon.
I should think so.
You don't know. Maybe he's an international jewel thief. Goes around thieving jewels.
Why would you say such a thing?
Fun.
When my husband gives me jewels, they are hard-earned jewels. I take offence.
Hard-earned stolen jewels?
How dare
Have you
you?
had any recent jewels given to you by your husband?
Well, I think this is none of your business now.
I'd like to see those jewels.
Oh, for goodness sake. My jewels were in his safe.
Oh, I'm so sorry. They've all been stolen?
Yes, thank you.
How expensive were these jewels?
I don't ask questions like that when I'm given a gift.
Wow, okay, fine. You're saying you're better than me. Get out of here. All right, lovely. Well, thank you for your time, Mrs. Wife.
Yes, likewise.
If you could go back to your business, but bring the maid from the parlour. I'll be waiting here in the kitchen.
Yes, sir.
I make a sandwich.
Oh, God. It's a good thing the cook's on vacation or they'd hit you with a rolling pin.
Too bad, it can't hit me.
All right, the maid enters the kitchen where you're making yourself a sandwich.
I've made it already, I'm eating it now.
Oh, understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say, no,
Here, I've got some real food here that you can use for effect.
I say, I have only some short questions for you. Could you describe the day on which Mr. Davenheim went missing? Davenport?
Well, as far as I know, it was mostly a regular sort of day. I spent a good deal of the time cleaning. I did.
No, I like this voice. Don't back down, it's good.
It wasn't until mid-late afternoon that the doorbell rang and I let in this big tall man.
Mr. Lowen.
I suppose so. I didn't ask.
Objection,
myself.
leading the witness. Sorry.
He said that he was here to see the master.
Interesting. Mid-late afternoon, I would have thought this was closer to 6:30 at night.
It may well have been.
Oh, it's England. The
It's
sun doesn't set till like 11 p.m. in the summer.
That's right.
Now you understand the climate and the days up here. All right, so you let him in. Had you seen Mr. Lowen at all?
No, I
Not
wasn't.
Mr. Lowen. Had you seen Mr. Davenheim earlier today?
Oh, I'd seen him, wander in and out perhaps, but our paths didn't cross excessively.
Okay.
I think he spent a good deal of his time in the garden.
Well, I shall talk to your gardener later.
Fair enough. He's on the clock until 6 on Saturday, so...
Interesting. So go on, you open the door for Mr. Lowen, you let him in.
And then the mistress came downstairs and greeted him and showed him to the master's study.
Well, oh, wonderful. Okay, that corroborates some evidence for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I returned to my cleaning duties.
And when you murdered Mr. Davenheim...
Whoa!
Did you do it?
What's a murder?
Don't play dumb with me. Sorry. Pardon my English.
Oh, that's
I meant
it, is it?
when you last saw Mr. Davenheim. Did he seem worried at all?
Oh, I wouldn't have thought so. He always has a bit of a spring in his step. I think he appeared normal.
Okay, interesting. And Mr. Lowen, when he left, did he jingle like he was carrying a pile of jewels?
He didn't that I noticed, but...
Now that you mention it...
No, now that you mention it...
Yes. Tell me now.
Well, it's the strangest thing. When I was upstairs doing the windows in the bedroom...
Yes.
Did I say bedroom or bedrooms? There were probably 7. When I was upstairs doing the windows in the bedrooms, I noticed Mr. Lowen, the same man who I let in before, he was over by the rose bushes, outside, walking towards the house.
Interesting. After you let him in?
Yeah.
Before he had... Was this before he had officially left?
Yeah, that's right. He was outside.
Interesting. Now, where are the rose bushes in relation to the study? I really need to talk to this gardener.
Oh, the roses, they're not too far from the side of the house, which is the side that the study would be.
Okay, so sort of they could be underneath the study's windows, perhaps.
They're a little further out than that. It's a walk, but only a pleasant, short summer stroll. So when I saw this Mr. Lowen fellow, he was definitely coming from the rose bushes direction. There's nothing else over there but them roses. But he was distinctly coming back towards the side of the house.
Interesting.
The house. The house.
The house.
I'm not being very consistent here. My accent's getting a little stronger and weaker in places.
This is something about which I would not know. All right, so, well, thank you for your time. Anything else you'd like to put forward before I send you on your way?
Oh, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, if I have other questions, I'll return.
Please.
Now, if you'd like to go to the parlour and send the gardener in to meet me, I'll be in the library.
Oh. He doesn't normally go in there, his boots and all. But
Perhaps
you're the police.
Perhaps you could remove the boots.
That's weird.
It is a custom in Belgium.
All right.
All right, so I go to the library.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I get a big book set called The ABCs of Horticulture. And I open it up and pretend I'm reading it as he comes in.
All right. Okay, what's the gardener's voice going to be? That's a good question.
Let me give you some auditions.
No, I'm good. I got it. Whatever comes out of my mouth, that's what it's going to be.
But what if it's this? Hey, I'm the gardener. What, you want me to do the bushes? You want me to do the roses? You want me to do the bushes?
The audio image went a bit crazy there.
Wah. I can't sustain that voice. But if you'd like to give it a go, please.
No.
I'll just
All right,
that's what's
the gardener walks into the library.
Let me just make a note that says gardener. I'll give him some more. I'll give him some space here. I say, Monsieur.
Mute. There's a mute button in front of me.
I will give you one more chance to make up a name, Monsieur. Monsieur.
It's Mute.
That's Monsieur Mute.
Mute.
Mute?
Mute.
Mute?
Mute. Open your mouth, Frenchie. Belgie.
Monsieur Mute, please sit down. Take a seat.
Whatever. Yep.
I have some questions for you about the day of the disappearance.
Oh, of course.
Now, did you see anything? Could you describe the day to me? You obviously worked as a gardener until what time did you leave?
I get off at 6. A little hard to tell based on my lack of a pocket watch. What's appropriate for the time?
Yeah, probably.
But often if I work closer to the house by that time of night, I can hear their big old clock chime.
Okay. Could you hear it on the day that you left, or were you merely guessing?
This time, it took me a long while. I assumed I must have missed it because I was working quite far away from the house towards the end of the night.
Interesting.
Afternoon.
And did you notice anything strange about Mr. Davenheim on the day that he disappeared?
No, actually, that's the funny thing about all this. He came through, he wandered through the gardens, quite a good mood. He seemed to be absolutely in his normal behaviour.
Interesting. Until he disappeared.
Apparently so.
Did you see him as he was leaving?
I did see towards the end of the night. I don't know exactly how close to 6 it was, but I did see a man going around the side of the house towards the rose garden, and he does often use the French windows in his study to leave out that way to go for an extra stroll, so it was probably him. But again, I was working in the cucumbers quite far off, so I couldn't be certain.
And this was at around what time? Just before you left?
It wasn't long before I left, but all I got is probably before 6.
Well, this is interesting, listeners, because we know that Mr. Lowen was also at those rose bushes. However, that was later. Presumably, unless this man was Lowen, and the gardener is confused as to the time. Did you see Mr. Davenheim when he went to town? To deliver letters, he claims.
Apparently not.
Perhaps from your vantage point in the cucumbers, you were unable to see this.
Look, it's a big garden. I can't have my eyes everywhere at once. He may well have slipped out when I was elsewhere.
Interesting. Would you be able to show me to the rose bushes, my good sir?
I suppose so. I could give you the grand tour if you like. Not that there's much to see right about now.
Do you happen to grow any marrows? I'm a marrow grower myself.
There are 15 kinds of marrows, 7 of which were invented here.
Interesting. I would like to see them. I am a connoisseur. I myself grow marrows of some kind. What's a marrow? We worked this out once. It's like a gourd of some kind. Is this a zucchini, a type of marrow?
I don't know.
Is marshmallow
I don't know. Marrows just sound like pumpkins.
I think they're kind of they're gaudy. They're very gaudy is what they are. So I discussed marrows with the garden.
Yeah, all right. And you wander around. He points out the key features of the garden to you.
What are the key features of the garden?
So you've got the rose garden, obviously, not far from the side of that house. Off in, you know what, not a completely different direction, but a sort of different direction from that. There's a lake on the property. Some distance away.
The property. Yep.
And by that, there's a small fancy boathouse.
Oh, interesting.
It's not used very often. That's
yeah.
No one's a big boater in the household at the moment.
Fair enough.
And just past that, there's a small road that goes through a gate off the private property. It passes an old building and back to the village, some minutes away. So it's entirely possible that is a route that could be used. It would be.
It's not the route I came up. It's a separate way back to the village.
Absolutely, yeah. There's the main drive. Okay. And then there'd be this. It would be strange, a bit of a scenic route, but not impossible that you'd take it that way. And yeah, those seem to be the main things. So you head over to the rose garden. The roses themselves are quite spectacular at this time of year.
Lovely.
And you can see, not too far from you, some large French-style windows.
Which would lead to the study?
Yes.
Interesting. For some reason I pictured the study upstairs, but I guess it's not.
Apparently not.
All right, interesting. Kind of look around the road, see if there's anything that's been recently dug up or unearthed. Is the dirt recently disturbed?
I tell you, I would notice if that had happened.
Have you looked?
Of course I've looked. I have to tend to these things every bloody day, I do. Damn it, I'm changing again.
Cool. Jets is what I was working on the other day.
There are too many of them. I'll try Liverpool next. So...
I was going to try. I get so nervous. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm working on these roses every day. Me and John working on the roses.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do them
Sometimes we dig up.
except for Simpsons
Sometimes we dig
quotes.
up things. Sometimes we dig them up out of the ground. I don't know. It's interesting. You know roses. No, I've lost it. Roses is not right.
Dear Marge, thanks for the portrait of yours truly. I hung it on me wall. You're quite the artist.
Yeah. So just work that in somehow. You would notice?
Of course I would notice. There ain't been any tampering with the roses themselves. Anyone would come out to have a sniff. Especially the master. He likes hanging around the garden.
Okay.
Not like the missus.
Okay, so anything else you want to anything else? I don't have any other questions for the gardener. Oh, I did have another question for the gardener. Rosebuds? No, he didn't really see much. He was kind of just chilling with the cucumbers. If you're listening at home and think there's something I should ask the gardener, tweet at me. Tweet at Escape This Podcast, or at Esk This Podcast, and tell me what I should be asking the gardener. I'll wait. This man, you saw a man who leave the study and go to the Rose. Did you see anything else about him? Did you see how long he stayed there? Whether it was merely a quick jaunt?
Didn't see him. Whether he left, whether he went back in. Didn't catch that.
All right. I don't think I have any other. Do you think I'm missing something that I should be asking?
I don't think you're missing something. It's just if there are any other things that you might want to know, like don't just focus on necessarily what happened. Just be a bit more holistic. It's not necessary, but
what do you think of the of? What do you think? What do you think of Mr. Davenheim in general? Does he seem like a happy man?
I like him very much. I would have thought so. I don't pay attention to his personal life, to his work life, anything like that, but whenever he comes and he asks me questions about how the garden's going, we have a good, right old chat.
And what kind of questions does he usually ask?
Oh, just about what things require to grow, what seasons are right, normal plant questions.
Okay.
When the fruits are going to be ready, can he take a cheeky taste?
Okay, interesting. Has he ever had any issues paying you in the past? You've ever had to wait for payment?
No, not at all. You think someone can own a place like this and have money issues?
Yeah, it's England. Everyone who owns a place like this has money issues. All right, thank you for that. Have a good day. If I need to call on you again, I shall at a moment's notice, and you'll be unprepared, and you got to just deal with that.
Understood. Yeah, weirdo.
And here is a gift, and I reach into my coat and I bring out a marrow that I've grown earlier, and I hand it to him.
He sniffs it, and he takes the whole thing into his mouth right there, and he chews it and stares you in the eye, saying not a word.
I leave. Defeated. Thoroughly defeated. Okay.
The Battle of Wills is won.
He can be the new star. I'm gone. All right, lovely. So, dear listeners, what have I figured out? Kind of nothing. And kind of something. So I know business seems okay. No one seems to be complaining about business, but it's definitely worth talking to Salmon. I think that gardener stayed late. He must have seen Lowen in the garden. You know, why else would he be so accepting the fact that sometimes he's late, sometimes he's not? So the timeline, I think, still fits, you know, because Lowen arrived at 6:30. So, did he not?
No.
Lowen?
Yeah.
That's my timeline, is him
Really?
arriving at 6:30. Well, I feel like, didn't the wife say that at 5:30, Davenheim left to go, and then an hour later?
No, and then 15 minutes later.
Oh, 15 minutes later.
Arrived, and then maybe an hour later he left.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so Lowen arrived before 6. Either way, the gardener wouldn't have seen him there. Now, we know that he was out, that the maid saw him out in the gardens at a similar time, before he then left again. So somewhere in that hour, from 5:45 to 6:45. He was out in that rose garden. Whereas the wife, I believe, thinks he was waiting in the study the whole time. And she wouldn't really notice because she seems to spend a lot of time upstairs.
Yeah.
Just chilling.
Does her own thing, apparently.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Now, the gardener saw Mr. Lowen.
Potentially.
Or at least someone. Which he thinks possibly Mr. Lowen, possibly Mr. Davenheim. I wonder how similar the two men look. I feel like the description was not too dissimilar. I wonder. Here's my working theory, listeners. Lowen is Davenheim. He left, disguised himself, returned.
To test the household to see if they'd
No,
recognize
to steal
him.
some jewels and go sell them because he's a butt and he hates his life.
Okay,
That's my working theory.
gotcha.
Davenheim is Lowen. So they are. And he murdered, I don't know, some kid.
Oh,
There's got to be a murder somewhere. Just
Ah.
murder someone. Just a bit of the old murder. Bit of the old ultra-violence.
yeah, people don't tend to just up and disappear from their lives without some
Without
reason.
some kind of murder. Okay, the maid, she let Lowen in. Neither the maid nor the wife recognise Lowen, so it's probably not Davenheim. Unless his makeup's real good, which probably isn't. Okay. Neither of them knew Lowen either, so he didn't see. So perhaps he came in on the same train. Do I know if there's multiple trains in? Doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference.
There are definitely multiple trains in and out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go and ask Jap quickly. I'm just going to go back to the police and say, Monsieur Jap, are you ready to talk?
Well, Jap isn't actually there. In fact, you get told when you go back that you've wasted your time a bit. He's actually at the estate.
Oh.
Yeah, he's actually returned there, but you may have missed him because he's actually by the lake.
Oh, all right. I returned to the estate.
All right.
I forgot about the lake and the boathouse. Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. I forgot. Let's go down to the boathouse.
All right. Well, the boathouse is a boathouse.
Nothing interesting about the boathouse?
You don't notice anything. It's pretty modest sized. It's pretty neatly kept, but no, you don't find a body in there or anything. And you do find Jap and a couple of other underlings around the lake. And he tells you, in whatever Jap voice was, I don't think it was much of a voice that I gave him.
Yeah.
So, well, where there's a body of water, there's a place to hide things.
There's a body.
Where dredging probably isn't the right word in this case. We're netting it. We're dragging it.
I feel that's
We're
dredging.
drag netting. Dredging feels a bit more like you're full on emptying
That's
the
true.
lake.
All right, so you're just dragging.
Yeah, we got a big old net and we're sweeping it.
Have you found anything of interest yet, Monsieur
Not
Jap?
yet. It may take some time.
Okay. Do you know Monsieur Jap?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about a Mr. Lowen?
Oh, of course, we've heard his name come up from the missus, and he's well worth talking to. He's a big city man.
Do you have him on hand to talk to? Do you know where he is?
I've got an address for him.
May I see this address?
Yes. You're helping us. Of course you can. Have our resources. You know Jap is not the criminal. That is not his backstory. His resources are yours.
Thank you, Mr. Davenheim.
You can't see this. I'm tilting my head as far as it will go.
Oh, I misspoke. Sorry, Jap. And I look at him. I stare at him. All right, I go to the address. I go to talk to Mr. Lowen.
All right, let's
I
do
knock
it.
on his door.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
And I'm holding a book that I've bought from home, which I pretend to be reading, which is called Stealing Jewels 101, How to Take My Friend's Money. I don't mention it, I'm just reading it as I come in.
Did you knock on my door with your nose in a book? That seems impolite somehow.
It is the way we continentals work.
Mm.
We read, we knock, we read. There is no time for your English sensibilities when there is reading and knocking to be done.
Whatever. What do you want? Who are you?
I was merely passing by to solve the murder. There is no murder. What is there? It's a mystery. Hi, I'm Poirot.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I'm with the police.
Okay, good to know, because as of yet, you were just a very rude house guest.
Indeed I was. Much like you were when you trampled through the rose bushes. No, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Mr. Lowen, you visited the home of one Mr. Davenheim.
Yes, that's right.
How do you know Mr. Davenheim?
Well,
Well, I murdered. I mean...
our businesses cross paths every now and again. I'm a speculative investor.
a spinvestor.
So he contacted me about some business going on in Buenos Aires that might have posed potentially a conflict of interest between our works, and we wanted to hash it out like men.
A conflict of interest in what way?
Well, I don't want to go into the specifics. It's all a bit complicated for someone not in the biz, but I may have gotten one over on him. What's that phrase?
Murdered and made disappear.
Yeah, we weren't in competition or anything. Our businesses are not that close, but occasionally I managed to put my ear to the wall. I know phrases.
Yep, ear to the wall.
And may have made a lucky deal or two that I suppose you could say were at his expense.
Ah, interesting. And he invited you to the house to discuss this?
Well, to discuss presumably this future venture that he's got going on. I don't know a huge deal about it, but trying to make sure that we maybe dealt with it a little bit less.
You don't get in each other's way.
Exactly.
No wall ears in this business.
For once.
All right, lovely, interesting. So you've worked with him before?
Oh, I wouldn't say worked with him. Our paths have very rarely crossed in person. We just more know each other through the vine.
Ah, interesting. But what are you doing in town? You're obviously not a local. Or are you?
I'm not in town right now. You had to catch the train into another town to meet me. How did you not notice that?
I was not paying the attention. I was merely caught up in this book.
The small town where his estate is, you mean? Where Clutterbuck
Yes.
Estate is?
Where Clutterbuck is.
I came specifically for this meeting.
Interesting. And what time did you come?
Let's see, I called the 5 o'clock, so it must have been between 5:30 and 6.
Interesting. That checks out.
So I believe that it was just before 5:30 that I actually got out at the station. And then I looked at the timetable and I saw when my train to leave would have to be. And so I arrived at the house, waited for Davenheim, and he didn't show. And eventually I knew that I was going to miss the train back, so I left.
You stayed in the house the whole time?
Yes.
Interesting. Didn't leave at all?
No.
For any reason? Did not perhaps stop to, as they say, smell the roses?
You're right, there was a rose garden, wasn't there? I have a particular interest in roses. I may have stepped out to examine them. They were quite beautiful.
An interest enough to make you leave the house to examine them, but not an interest large enough to have you remember this fact when questioned.
You've said the word murder to me. I'm a little bit flustered. Why are you staring at me like that?
I cannot think of what to ask next. So you did go and smell the roses, and you say they were good roses?
Yes, you're right. They were spectacular. Coming back to me now.
Interesting. I feel like I should have more to ask this man, but I don't know what. But you never saw Mr. Davenheim while you were in town?
You know, that's a very interesting point. No, I absolutely didn't. Not even once.
Interesting. And after you left the estate, you returned straight to the train station?
Absolutely.
Do you have the ticket stubs to corroborate this?
Who keeps ticket stubs?
Cool people. Train enthusiasts.
Of which I am neither.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Lowen. I will leave you be.
Back in the 1920s, cool was a grievous insult.
Okay. So, what do we know from Lowen? Lowen is an investor. He was going to meet with Davenheim about some business going on in Buenos Aires, which matches up to his wife's story about him having a recent trip to Argentina. And this was purely to avoid conflicts that they'd had in the past. So they've had a bit of a rocky history in terms of their business interfering with each other's business because they're both gangsters. He seemed to have, he says he arrived on time. He didn't tell me about the rose bushes, but he didn't deny it necessarily. So I don't know what's going on there. All right, well, I don't know if I have anything else to ask Lowen.
Yes, it seems that your potential lead suspect is a bit of a dud in the interrogation department.
Yes, maybe I need more to go on. Well, why don't I... Look, I'll go back. Look, if I need to find him, I'll catch the train over again. I'll head back to town. I want to talk to... Or maybe stay where I am now, because I'm in the city, or some other bigger town. I'd like to try and find and talk to Mr. Salmon, Davenheim's business partner. All
right, you head over to the buildings of Davenheim and Salmon.
Yep.
And you go up and you request a meeting with Mr. Salmon.
Mm-hmm.
And the man who comes out is younger than you expect for
Hello,
such
Mr.
a prestigious
Poirot.
thing. Hey!
How are you?
Stop it!
I murdered
Stop
him!
it! Hello, Mr. Poirot. I'm very sorry. Mr. Salmon is actually out on business at the moment, but I'm his junior partner, Mr. Frink. Glad to meet you, and I know all of his business, so whatever you need, I got it.
Where is Mr. Salmon? On business?
Oh, he's just up in Manchester.
When did you last see Mr. Salmon?
This morning.
Oh, okay. Not Saturday afternoon.
Course not. He's a busy man. He can't...
It's pronounced businessman.
Get out.
Alright, I reload my game. And I try again. I skipped all the dialogue. Do you know, he's in Manchester. Do you know what business this relates to? The Argentina job? The Buenos Aires possibility?
The Argentina job, that was Davenheim. That had nothing to do with salmon.
They do not work together?
Well, I mean, they're partners. They're very different sides of things. Come on. You can't just work on one thing at a time. That's absurd.
Fair enough.
So he's working on the Manchester job right now.
And do you know roughly what that is? The theft of jewels?
What sort of a business do you think this is?
Sorry, I misspeak. You must forgive my English. What I meant was an investment opportunity.
No, it's not even an investment thing. We're not investors. We're a financial institution. If anything, it'd be lending. That's more Salmon's side.
Interesting. It's just a normal routine job, this Manchester job?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. How has business been lately with the disappearance of Mr. Davenheim?
I mean, just for these last 2 days, it's been a bit of a shock, but we've managed.
How's business been in general? Up? Down? In the dumps?
Can't complain. In fact, it's been quite on the up and up. Davenheim himself very recently oversaw a substantial transaction.
Interesting. How substantial are we substantiating here? Very?
It was nothing to sneeze at. We all got a good Christmas goose.
And now your goose is cooked! You are the murderer!
Do you even remember my name?
It was Professor Frink! You think I do not remember, but I do.
Well, yeah, now that, I assume, did have something to do with the Argentina job.
Interesting. And this is when he was in Argentina earlier? It's all part of this one big job?
Yeah, last year.
Interesting. What do you know about Mr. Lowen?
Oh, well, he and Davenheim weren't exactly on good terms from what I know. He's an investor. He has made a couple of good trades, and Davenheim wasn't too happy about that. In fact, he got the worst end of the deal. That's about it. I don't think there was any personal grudge. It was just what I assumed a bit of friendly inter-office rivalry.
Interesting.
Extra-office rivalry?
Intra-office?
Definitely not that one.
Inter-office. Okay. I don't know what to ask. I feel a bit at a loss here. Not quite sure. So maybe what we'll do, I might need to. Let's take a break, right? I'm gonna recap my thoughts here.
Yeah, you've met a lot of people.
Let's talk about what I know. So who have I talked to? I've talked to the wife, the gardener, the maid, Mr. Lowen, and Mr. Frink. Not Salmon, but Frink. I'll make a note here. Frink. Now, they all seem to agree on a rough timeline. Right? He went down to town saying he was going to deliver. He arrived at 12:40 in town.
Mm-hmm.
This is Mr. Davenheim. To say said at 5:30 he said, "Oh, hello, I'm going down to town to deliver some letters."
Down to tone or down tone?
So he went downtown to deliver some letters at about 5:30. Shortly after, I've heard 5:45. I've heard somewhere between 5:30 and 6, so 5:45. Mr. Lowen arrived. Now, he says he arrived. The maid let him in. The wife let him into the study. Everyone seemed to corroborate that he arrived. Now, the wife thinks he was in the study the whole time, and he claimed he was in the study the whole time until pushed. And he's admitted, yes, he did go out to smell the roses. That rose bush doesn't seem to be tampered with. My thought perhaps was there was some sort of like he stole something, he stole the jewels out of this safe, and maybe he buried them in the rose garden for somebody else to get later. Unless he's in cahoots with the gardener. I don't know. So something's gone off there because someone has stolen the jewels from that study, which was not found till Monday morning. So it could have happened either on that Saturday evening or at any point during the day on Sunday. Not sure. Davenheim doesn't seem to have had anything. His business seems to have been going quite well. He doesn't seem to have been sad or anything like this. That's something that would lead him to want to leave himself. The postmaster never received any letters from him, to his memory. Salmon is in Manchester, but only left today. And seems to have a business fairly separate from what Davenheim's doing. So perhaps Davenheim is doing something criminal behind the scenes with Mr. Lowen as an accomplice, or at least a rival of some kind. But I don't know what that would mean in this case. I feel like I'm missing something.
So let's take a look at the big three for the moment for what you have now. Now, of course, you don't have all the information yet. More will reveal itself. But the big three that you need are your means, motive, and opportunity.
Yes.
Your MMO, as it were.
Now, I don't know if I've got any of them. Because I don't even know if he's dead.
Exactly.
I don't know if there's a murder. I don't know if there's a body. I mean, it may be as simple as means he has money.
Motive, he wants a holiday.
Motive, he wants to go on a holiday, and opportunity, he can do whatever the hell he wants. So he may have just left and gone on a holiday. I don't know, and I think until I find something that indicates this is a murder, I don't know if I can really focus down on these things.
Well, with that, the maid comes up to you from your pondering. I don't know, you're standing in the driveway.
I'm having another kitchen sandwich.
Excuse me, Mr. Porritt. That's it, right?
That's how you pronounce it, yes. Congratulations.
I don't mean to bother you, but we've actually had a phone call. For you,
Mon Dieu.
from a Mr. Japp.
Mon Dieu!
He said that
Something is not right.
He said that he's returned to the office and his men have finished netting the lake and they found something.
I must away! I grab my hat and I rush out the door. What has Japp found? Find out next time in part 2 of this episode. Alongside me, I don't know what he found either.